Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about how the new cards ended up shaping the meta, if it ended up shaping the meta at all. A few weeks ago, we had the, synchro packs come out. Baron de Fleur was the really big one that was on everyone's mind. Is Baron de Fleur good? You know, there was Despia, some synchro cards, stuff like that. Nothing too crazy, and everyone pretty much just said only Baron. That's going to be the only thing that could potentially be good. We've had quite a few tournaments since then. I've just got some random reports on the screen. I think just the GG Tour, but you know, I'm going to be talking from experience when it comes to all of the tournaments we've had since that. Since those new cards have come out, I'm going to be talking about how the meta scene has been impacted. This is, of course, for competitive tournament scenes. This is not for ranked ladder. If these cards work for you in ranked ladder, I'm happy for you. That's awesome. But I'm specifically talking about the competitive community tournament side of things because, as you know, if a deck does well in a community tournament, it can do well in ladder. Not necessarily if you have something that does good in ladder will do well in community tournaments. So that is why I'm looking specifically at our tournament data. Plus, it's just easier to parse through at the end of the day, right? So there you go. How have the new cards performed? Well, since it's come out, we've had one Despia player top, which was pretty cool. It was with a fusion invoked kind of archetype, but unfortunately, you see, I think it's on there, invoked Despia. Unfortunately, he did not play in the top 32, and at the end of the day, it did look pretty weak in terms of its, you know, strength and what it brought to the table, but it was an interesting strategy to see between having the field spell for fusion purposes and recovery purposes from the graveyard. He was able to constantly keep spamming out that one fusion monster that just made everything else zero attack and essentially stopped his opponent from ever really being able to aggress on him, with, of course, Alistair being there for invoked Mechaba, or, you know, we actually saw an invoked Purgatria at one point for some finishing power, which is not what you always see in Master Duel. So that was pretty cool. We also saw a cool little synchro deck, which just I believe was playable before we had the new cards. New cards just made it a little bit more consistent, and we got to see, I forget what he's called, the little bike dude with the crystal wing and everything, and it was pretty neat. You know, it's very reminiscent of what a synchro deck does, just synchro on up multiple times, and then when you get to the new synchro bike, you break him down apart into your crystal wing and your I forget the other one's name, but it's the pendulum one. Basically, you end up getting three sort of negates. One of them lets you negate one of your opponent's level 5 or higher monsters. One of them lets you negate just one face-up monster, and the last one lets you negate if one of your level 5 or higher gets targeted, which, of course, since they're synchro, they're all going to be level 5 or higher. So that's pretty cool. That was pretty cool. The other card a lot of people were talking about where it was Baron de Fleur. Baron de Fleur was going to be meta-changing, meta-shifting. You know, Emancipator is just going to be an insane deck with this card. And I'll be honest, while I've seen Emancipators make that card, I feel like other decks right now are ironically making it better. And while those decks are making it, it's not necessarily pushing those decks into a kind of meta territory. It's just kind of rogue decks that are now stronger because of Baron de Fleur. Now, I do believe that Baron, in the future, maybe even in the near future, when we get our first real update where we get a brand new set of cards with some potentially meta-shifting strategies like Sword Soul, it is a generic level 8 monster. It is very, very, very strong in what it can do. You know, the one-time negate with the ability to bounce back, resummon it later on. But as of right now, it doesn't really have a place outside of rogue decks. Emancipators are making it. I don't want to, pretend like Emancipators are not making this card. They are able to make it, but it hasn't made them any more stronger or weaker. They're just the same deck still. They're still losing to Maxi, still losing to Nibiru if they don't get the good excavates from the top. And ultimately, we haven't had like this crazy increase in Emancipator play. I mean, you can see here, 20 Emancipators ended up entering with one topping, our massive, huge tournament. That's not good. That is really, really not good, especially if, they just got support that was supposed to make them significantly better than they were before. we honestly, I think the decks that we've seen Baron DeFleur do the best in is kind of this new Yang Zing deck that we've been seeing. And it's this weird kind of Yang Zing with some 10 Yi support, and you basically put up a board with Baron, a counter trap, and then usually like a Savage Boreload or any other just negate, and ending on a board with 3 negates, which is pretty good, all things considered. And then, of course, the Yang Zings, every time they're, sent away, especially the counter trap, they can float into other Yang Zings, and you just kind of have like this really cool synchro loop that you're able to create. I know it uses a banned card. It's something Tomahawk. I know it's banned in TCG, but like, yeah, we saw a crazy end board of VFD plus a counter trap plus the Baron DeFleur, and that deck has seen some interesting play. I don't remember if it was in GG Tour, but we've seen it in a couple of our weekday tournaments, and it's been pretty cool. Definitely still in the rogue tier category. But that deck so far, I think, has had kind of the most success when it comes to both summoning and using Baron DeFleur. However, it kind of just seems like the 3 best decks, Drytron, Virtual World, Tri-Brigade specifically, just continue to dominate the meta scene. I think these 3 decks can be played at any level of Yu-Gi-Oh! Either, competitive, casual, ladder, memes on streamers, dual rooms and stuff. You could play all these decks and you'll be absolutely fine, while also turning around and playing them on that competitive ladder and doing very, very well with them. Tri-Brigade just continues to be dominant because it's extremely flexible. It can play a whole bunch of different variants. It can play every relevant hand trap in the game can be played by them, which lets them play things like Crossout Designator, which lets them counter all the hand traps in the game. Drytron is just Drytron. They go first. You can't beat them. It is what it is. And Virtual World continues their VFD spam, essentially. We have been seeing more and more people kind of shift up the Virtual World decks. Actually kind of interesting. They're introducing a different trap card rather than just playing the Chuche. They're playing 2 trap cards now for some extended plays and more synchro plays, more Cloud Castles, more things like that, which has been interesting to see. But ultimately, the meta has not really shifted that hard with the new cards. If anything, it's been kind of side grades, or a few more rogue decks have popped up that include synchros. That's about it. But yeah, that's the update for the new cards. Were they good? They were okay. Baron DeFleur, definitely the best thing. We've seen some other interesting stuff, but ultimately the meta has not really shifted at all. Just some cool stuff people got to experiment with in the rogue category. Looking forward to the next update. Hope you boys enjoyed. I hope you guys have been at least enjoying these cards in the ladder. Let me know what types of videos you'd like to see down in the comments down below. I love you boys. Take it easy.